Great. Welcome, everyone. My name is Gail Schwartz. I am the Associate Director, Policy and Strategic Initiatives here at the Housing Alliance. I am joined today by my co-captain for Team Pennsylvania for Capitol Hill Day, which is happening in conjunction with the National Alliance to End Homelessness Conference, and that is Jose Cruz. You want to say hi to folks, Jose? Oh, I think we might have lost Jose in our technology. With that, we also have a couple other folks that are helping organize this effort. We have Anne Francois, who is new to the Housing Alliance and will be joining us in DC. If you want to say hi to folks, Anne.
Hello, everybody.
And then we also have Jim Piasecki. Both Jim and Jose are with Resources for Human Development out of the eastern part of the state. So let's go over today's agenda. First, we're just going to go over, why Capitol Hill Day. We're going to talk about what's been happening leading up to Capitol Hill Day, what we at the Housing Alliance have been doing to help prepare, and what you can be doing to help prepare. We're going to go over what is going to happen on the day, and then talk about the little bit of follow-up that needs to be happening, as well as next steps, and of course answer any questions. So why Capitol Hill Day? Really, it's because increasing federal resources will benefit your community and your clients, and because advocacy works when it's done right. Also, there are several folks who are just going to be coming down for the Capitol Hill Day alone, but for those who may not know, this Capitol Hill Day is done in coordination with the National Alliance to End Homelessness. So they will be having a conference starting Monday in Washington, D.C. So some of the participants coming to Capitol Hill Day will be at that conference. Many of you will be coming down for the day of only. But we are glad that all of you are lending your time and expertise to help us advocate for the resources that we need to end homelessness in Pennsylvania. So, Jose, are you able to hear me? All right, looks like we're having some technical difficulties. So it looks like what we have here is what our focus is going to be in our conversations with legislators. Our primary ask is that we are going to ask that McKinney-Vento HUD homeless assistance grants be funded in fiscal year 2020 at $3 billion. Just to give some context, the current funding level is at roughly $2.6 billion. Our second ask is going to be to support the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. And this is a bill that would include a 50% expansion of LIHTC and includes reforms that would allow more deeply target these resources to the families that need it most. So for those who may not be aware, the LIHTC is the single largest producer of affordable housing currently, and so this is a huge program. The affordability on it is time limited. It usually expires after 30 years, so we are going to see a lot of LIHTC expiring in the next 10 years, and the same resources that are used to build new units are the same resources that are going to be needed to help preserve those existing resources. So we really want to make sure that we see this program grow. And then we have some secondary focuses and secondary asks. There's a couple of pieces of legislation that are going through Congress right now that will expand resources for ending homelessness. The first one is on the Senate side. It's Senate Bill 923, and this is going to ask for additional money, I believe an additional $750 million over every year for 5 years to help communities end homelessness. There's also another bill, HR, or set of sister bills. On the House side, it's 2398. On the Senate side, it is 2061. That is going to be helping expand eligibility for the HUD-VASH program for those folks who received an other than dishonorable discharge and haven't accessed any sort of housing supportive services through the BEA. And then our final ask will be just a general, we want to see support for all federal housing, homeless assistance, and community development programs. And we want to make sure that we have, at the very minimum, sustained funding for the upcoming fiscal year. And this includes, but is not limited to, McKinney-Vento, to public housing, capital and operating funds, the Housing Choice Voucher Program, HOME, CDBG, Section 811 supportive housing, and the National Housing Trust Fund. All right.
All right. So before the day, the Housing Alliance will schedule appointments. We will prepare packets for the meetings. And lastly, we would also organize teams for the day of.
All right, let me get the slide for you.
All right. So in the packets that you'll be receiving, the first piece of one piece you'll be receiving is a legislative meeting guide, as well as talking points. The second piece would be policy priorities. You will also receive McKinney-Vento and LIHTC fact sheets. Also with that, we'll include the capital maps, and lastly, the schedule of the day.
And Anne has been doing a lot of really great work calling and getting meetings with legislators and getting those packets ready for us. So I'm going to try one last time. Jim, can you hear me? All right. So what you can do to prepare leading up to Capitol Hill Day next week. What we would ask for you is to prepare just having a few sentences on housing resources can be implemented in your community. So some of the things that you can think about is if you are a homeless assistance service provider, you can talk about how you use that funding in your community. If you are somebody who is a housing developer who's coming down for the day, again, you can also talk about what you could do more in the communities that you work in if there were more low-income housing tax credits available. One thing to remember is that you don't have to become an expert on tax credits or on any other policies. So this is really we will have packets that are going to have lots of information and data and the facts that are needed to talk about the policies. What we really like to see from the participants of these meetings is, that you put the face on this issue, and that you can be a true witness of the success that you've seen in your community. And also for those folks who are going to be attending the conference, there is going to be a planning session on Monday, July 22nd at 12:15 in the Roosevelt Room of the Waterman Park Marriott Hotel. And so I will be there to answer any questions or do a run-through of talking points or anything like that. So there will be that opportunity to talk more about this as well. So this is our messaging framework for the conversation. Again, we really, really, really like to keep these conversations very, very positive and talking about the solutions that we know are working. Since 2007, Pennsylvania has been able to bring down homelessness by 16%. We also have 7 communities that have declared an end to homelessness. So we really are doing really great things, and we really want to highlight the positive and the successes more so than focus on the things that aren't working well. We want to make sure that everybody knows that this is a smart investment in funding these programs. So again, we have some prompts here to help you think about what are the couple of things that you want to talk about. I think it's always good in these types of meetings if you have a specific example in mind of somebody who really, really had their life turn around with this type of assistance. I know for me personally, my go-to story in this meeting this year is a few months back, I got to meet with a gentleman who lived in Fayette County. He had experienced an extended period of homelessness, had experienced chronic homelessness, had been living in the woods, was very resistant to even accessing shelter services because he had a small dog that he cared for that was his longtime pet. And over time and outreach, he was finally able to get connected to permanent supportive housing, and just how grateful he was to not have to be outside anymore. And, he shared with me that for the first 6 months that he lived in his apartment, he was didn't even want to sleep in the bed because he was so afraid that he was going to lose his home again, and that it took him so long to finally feel at home. But now that he's at home in his current apartment, he's just happier than he's ever been in his whole life. And every day he wakes up so grateful for simply not having to be outside. So these are the type of just individual stories that I like to use when I'm in these meetings. And then, of course, we just want to remind our elected officials that, the federal government really must maintain its commitment to assisting us, because the consequences of reducing funding for these programs is really high. So next, let's talk about how to have an effective legislative visit. The team leader is going to open the meeting with the reason that we are visiting. We are going to have 2 meetings with the whole group, with both Senator Tooley's staff and Senator Casey's staff. And so I will be there to open those meetings. and we'll be the one to run those meetings. For the smaller group meetings for the congressional or for the House size, probably in the next day or two, someone might get an email from me asking them to lead those. Some of our more seasoned advocates on the phone that have done this a few times. But basically, the team leader opens up the meetings. Everyone goes around and introduces themselves and states why they are at the meeting, what brought you here today. The team leader is going to tell the staff or the legislator what the group is asking for. Again, our ask is to have, HUD homeless assistance grants funded at $3 billion and to support and vote in favor of the Affordable Housing Credit Improvement Act. And then then you have a conversation around the issue. This is when you get to share the story of the impact that you are making on your community. And again, this is, just the few sentences that you prepare in advance of the meetings. And then at the end of the meeting, the team leader will, close the meeting. Again, remind the legislator or the staffer what we are asking for, and of course, thank them for their time and support. So this is our schedule of the day so far, because people are going to be coming from different areas, and it's going to be a very, very hot Washington, D.C. day. What we would like to do is really plan to just get inside the Senate office building and go to the third floor, which is where Senator Casey's office is, and we would like to meet in the hallway just outside of his office, at the absolute latest 15 minutes before the meeting. I'm going to plan to be there by no later than 1 o'clock. So if you get there a few minutes early, hopefully I will beat you there. But again, we can do one last quick run through in the hallway, and then we can all walk into that particular office together. So far, this is our schedule, and it's still, and Jim and Jose are still diligently working to confirm appointments. But we definitely have appointments with Senator Casey, Senator Toomey, Representative Cartwright, who sits on appropriations, and Representative Doyle. For the Senator Casey, Senator Toomey, and Representative Cartwright meetings, unfortunately, the representatives and senators themselves cannot be at the meetings, but we are meeting with the staff members that are listed here. We should have all meetings sort of finalized. We're still trying to confirm meetings with Representative Dean, Representative Evans, and Representative Perry. And we should be able to get that finalized schedule out to folks. If your representative isn't here on this list, we will have a packet for you to go ahead and just deliver to the office and do a simple drop-off. When you're doing a drop-off like that, all you have to do is walk into the office, just state who you are, what brought you there today. I would say, I'm Gail. I'm with the Housing Alliance of Pennsylvania. I'm here because I just wanted to let the representative know that we would like to see federal homeless assistance programs fully funded at $3 billion in year 2020, and I would hand the packet to the receptionist. And maybe the receptionist will have questions and want to talk a little bit more, or maybe somebody will be available, or you could just, leave the packet. But no matter what district you're coming from, we will have something for you to do. And then what I have here is just, again, a few slides of, some anticipated comments and responses. Somebody in a meeting might ask, what has Pennsylvania done to reduce homelessness? And so what I have here is that, when we see resources focused, we see success. As I stated earlier, Pennsylvania has reduced homelessness overall by 16% since 2007. And we've also successfully ended veteran homelessness in 7 communities. And again, all of this information that's in today's presentation will be emailed to you afterwards, as well as in your packets. Another thing, if somebody wants to talk a little bit about the low-income housing tax credit and they would want to know what the impact of increasing the tax credit will have in Pennsylvania, and thanks to the good folks over at the Action Campaign, they've been able to do some data analysis and estimate that a 50% increase in LIHTC would produce an additional 10,000 affordable homes over the next 10 years. So that's pretty impactful. And again, this gives more detail about certain pieces of legislation, such as Senate Bill 923. This bill seeks to increase federal resources to battle homelessness. It is specifically going to authorize $750 million in grants annually for the next 5 years for local governments to combat homelessness. One other, for the HUD-VASH bill, we expect people to ask who would be included in the expanded definition of HUD-VASH. And again, HUD-VASH eligibility would be expanded to veterans who were not dishonorably discharged and had not received supportive housing services from the VA. And then oftentimes, one of the questions that we get in any sort of policy ask is, how will this be paid for? So we have a couple of answers to that question. One is, we know that funding is a challenge in the current environment, but we see the investment in affordable housing, ending homelessness, and tackling blight to be effective and necessary to realigning costs in other areas. And the other answer that we have for this question is, the lack of safe, decent, affordable homes is a hidden driver of healthcare and emergency services, corrections, and education costs. So the cost of doing nothing is simply too high. So again, we are going to be sharing all of these slides. We can also send out a copy of the discussion guide well in advance. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and unmute the line. And open it up for questions.
The conference has been muted.
Oh, wrong
The
button.
conference has been unmuted.
All right. So please remember that if you have a lot of background noise, if you're in the car driving and you don't plan on talking, if you could just go ahead and mute yourself, that you would need to press *7. Okay. So are there any questions? There's one question I see typed here in the lower left-hand corner from Heather. It says, will packets be available to those who cannot attend the conference but will attend the Capitol Hill Day? Absolutely. We are going to have packets ready for you. We can email you just a scanned copy of what's going to be in the packets, and then the physical packets will be prepared, and we can hand them to you when we all meet in the hallway in front of Senator Casey's office. Are there any other questions from folks on the phone? All right. Well, if there are no other questions, then here is my contact information. I have my cell phone up here as well. And so you can call me at any point. This is the best way to get a hold of me anytime next week if you have any questions. And then also Anne will be hanging out in the Eastern office, and she will be able to help field any questions as well. All right. Well, if there isn't any other questions from folks on the phone, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to participate in today's webinar, and also for taking the time to lend your talent and expertise for this year's Capitol Hill Day. Thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you in person next Wednesday. Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Bye.